All right. Well, hello everyone. It's good to be with you again today for a Tuesday afternoon. I hope you're all doing well. And Ryan, good to see you, brother.
Hello. Good to
Yeah,
see you as always.
we are glad to have you today. We've got a really good one today, and uh, so we cover a lot of topics, and certainly there's a lot of sales focused topics, but our leadership topics are some of our best, and our communication are very popular. And Ryan is really good, and you all, as you know, because you enjoy him. Have come to expect a really good session from Ryan. Ryan, I'm really looking forward to today's session. Reading between the lines, how to diversify your team and grow your productivity. I think every manager and every leader out there is looking to how can I diversify my team? How can I get more productivity out of my team members? And so I'm fired up for today.
Well, thank you, Darren. As always, I'm glad to be here. A little congested, so if I sound a little different, sound a little nasally, that's why. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I think this is going to be a good one because we all end up needing to have some sort of thought process about what does diversity in my office look like, and how can I best take advantage of it without leaving some people behind and being able to carry the whole team with me.
We hear every leader and manager talk about I want to grow my team. I want to figure out how to get good young people in and retain them. And so I'm really excited for this topic today. Hey, if you're congested, Ryan and I both live in Kentucky, so tis the season right now. But now you sound great. So hey, I tell you what, I'm going to wrap up, shut up, jump off here, and let you drive this thing. But take it away, Ryan.
All right. Well, as always, I'm glad to see you all. Hopefully, you all are enjoying your day. And I really want to make sure that when I talk about this, these are best practices, and everybody has their own way of doing things. So, what works for a business I may own may not work for your business, but these are things that we can all keep in mind. So, especially with a lot of conversation lately of what is diversity? What is diversity in the office place? Is it simply black and white, male, female? What is diversity? So, yes, diversity is all of those things, but diversity is more. So, it's people's different backgrounds, their experiences, their different perspectives. All of those can foster a conversation about what is diversity in my office. And so, a lot of times when we're hiring for the best person for the job. And I know in my previous life, I worked at a nonprofit. So I would hire college students and people to work with children. So a lot of times, my hiring thought process was I need to hopefully not get just a warm body in the building, but I need to hire somebody who is good. Looking at college students, a lot of times their resumes aren't very thick. So I had to look at other things outside of what their resume said. I had to look at other things about them. What are some of the diverse things they do within their community? What are some of the things they're doing at their school? What are some of the things that make them stand out, that make them different than all the other 15, 20, 30 applications I would look at? So when you get into the professional world, the bigger world, you're still looking with those same lenses of what exactly is diversity and what does that look like for me in my office. Now, first of all, every office is not going to look the same. Your diversity is not my diversity. What I may need for my business may not be the same as what you need for yours. But ultimately, every office benefits from having some level of diversity where it's not just the same group of people that look the same, think the same, and act the same in order just to get along. When you have that, you have a lack of diversity, and that lack of diversity can really hurt an office when it comes to meeting goals and growing. So I was looking at some information earlier this week as I was preparing for this, just to find out, how beneficial it is to have a diverse office and a diverse clientele. So I found that highly inclusive offices, highly diverse offices, they're 2.3 times more like they have 2.3 more. The cash flow grows by 2.3 times. So if you obviously every business, the goal is to make money, right? So when you are making it 2 to 3 times more because you have a diverse clientele, you have a diverse office, you have a diverse group, that means something. It also says that nearly 1.5 times more revenue than normal and 120% more capable of meeting financial targets. So why? Why is that important? Because you're having diversity of thought. You're having diversity of experience. Sometimes to have diversity of experience, you have to hire somebody that doesn't look like you, somebody that doesn't think like you, somebody that grew up differently. If you've ever seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, he was a man who was a CEO and lost it all and was broke. And then he ended up having to find his way back. His breadth of experience made him different, made him a diverse person to hire because of the fact he had nothing. He went from the top to the bottom, back to the top again. Sometimes we'll be squeamish to hire somebody because of what they don't have. Maybe they don't have the degree we're looking for. Maybe they don't have the specific skill set that we say in this job, this is what we have to have in order to hire somebody. Maybe it's the things that they don't have, what things that they have that we don't know that we even need. Maybe they're a better public speaker than we have on our staff. Maybe they're the team player that we're looking for that is a utility person. They can do everything and they're willing to do it. Whereas we thought we needed somebody who was a rock star in one area. Maybe we need somebody different. So I also come from the world of television. Before I got into higher ed and started doing my own business, I worked as a TV news reporter for several years. And one thing I found was being a reporter, you have to have a diverse newsroom because there are some people that can tell different stories better than other people. I know for me, there were certain stories, certain political stories, certain government stories I was better at telling than some of my colleagues. You wouldn't look at me and say it because I didn't have a political science background. I didn't have all those what you would call intangibles with that. But what I was able to do was I was able to understand the constituency. I was able to understand the people in the community that needed to hear these stories and what are they thinking because most of the people in the community are living at or below the poverty line. So as a young journalist who's not making a lot of money, I understand what how if this decision is made, how is that going to affect me and my wallet? Well, if I know how it's going to affect me, I want to report it to that same audience. Here's how it's going to affect me. So going back to what diversity means. Diversity is those visible traits, obviously what people are born with, their race, their gender, their age, those physical abilities. Those are the first things we see. And for good or for bad, we base a lot of our decisions on that. Let's say you've hired a diverse group of people in your office. Maybe you hired them looking at the fact that this person's young and they're going to be a go-getter and maybe they'll eventually become a leader in the company. Maybe you hired an older person because you know, hey, they've been around, they've been well traveled. We know that they're going to be a steady person and they're going to be somebody who we don't have to worry about leaving the company. Maybe you hired some minority people because you figure, hey, they're going to be able to tell us more about a clientele base, an audience that we don't already have a connection with. That's a great thing because those are the visible traits we see. But then again, we also go back to beliefs, perspectives. Sometimes people say, well, I own this company and I only want people politically who believe like I do. Well, you're making a mistake because not all of your customers are going to be the same political ideology as you. Michael Jordan famously never really dove into politics and never talked about it, whatever his political beliefs or stances was. He never made mention of it. Here's why. He was interviewed one time and said, "Well, why don't you make your political affiliations known? Why don't you speak up about politics?" And he said simply, "Republicans wear shoes too." So whether he was Democrat or Republican, he made the point of, I'm not going to alienate a base in order to stand on what I believe in. Depending on your company, depending on what you do, that may work for you. You may be nonpartisan. You may not say anything. You may not bring up anything that could be controversial. You may hire a certain crust of people because those people fit within the framework of what you are trying to sell or what service you're trying to provide. However, you might get as much, if not more, mileage by looking outside of that box and finding somebody who has a differing opinion, somebody who's been through something different than you. If you find somebody who maybe grew up in a lower class, grew up working class, they may have a different experience. A product may hit them differently. So if you're building a car, you don't want to necessarily go to the person who is rich, who can buy any type of car they want. You want to go to the person that grew up poor, that maybe their family struggled to get a car, because they'll tell you what that car that their family was able to afford, why it mattered to them, what was good about it, what didn't work about it. How could that be something that the average person who's going to buy that vehicle, how can they get the same enjoyment out of it, or the same workhorse mentality out of that vehicle, because you're looking outside of the box of the cookie cutter that a lot of businesses will fall into. Why it matters. Innovation, simple innovation and problem solving. When you have more brains at the table that have different thought processes that have come from different places and different spaces, you're likely to get more, what's the word I'm looking for? You're more varied. You're going to get more varied conversation. You're going to get some pushback. You're going to get some, hey, that doesn't work for everybody. Because in this life, we find that a lot of things are not one size fits all. As much as we try to make everything work for everybody, you're going to find that there are things that people do not go with in certain communities, in certain areas. So McDonald's, I think I've mentioned this before in another live event we've had, but McDonald's, everybody knows their "I'm loving it" slogan and logo on their commercials. But do you know that McDonald's has another slogan, one that is not nearly as popular or as familiar? Well, if you watch channels like BET or some of the other channels that cater to a mainly Black audience, they have a diversity logo, more of a logo for the Black community that says 365 Black. So they would use that during their commercials that were targeted towards a Black audience, because they didn't want to leave they didn't want to leave the Black community out. Now they knew that wouldn't play as well on Fox or CBS or ABC during a predominantly white show, but they knew on a network that catered to a Black or a diverse audience that would play well. They were thinking ahead of, okay, we can't just be one thing for one people. So if you find people in your that you can hire into your office that are not just one thing for for one group of people, then you're starting to find diversity. You're finding ways to include more people. Employee satisfaction and retention. It's no secret that when you see more people that look like you, when you see more people that think like you feel comfortable. But workers, people that you engage with every day, sometimes feel just as good when they have somebody that doesn't look like them, when they have somebody to challenge their beliefs, when they have somebody who brings a different flavor to the room. So, me being a broadcasting professor right now, I'm the only Black male within my office, which is fine because I bring a level of diversity. I can speak for a group that may not always be spoken for in my office. There's no contention. We don't get mad at each other. We don't get angry or offended with each other. But what we do is we share ideas. They've learned from me. I've learned from them. And that's how we grow. That's how we move. That's how we find out different ways to do different things. And it makes for better decision making. A lot of times, decisions can be done in a vacuum. We decide, okay, this is how we want to do things. This is how it's going to be. Oh, excuse me. But when you allow for more people to have their input, now decisions don't just come one way, but they may come in multiple conversations. There may be something that I see being a Black man that somebody who is a white woman would not see. Her thoughts are valuable, my thoughts are valuable. So finding those ways to integrate things together. So then you have a wider market reach. A diverse workforce can create a better understanding of the entirety of the community. So living here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, we are a diverse community. We have refugees, we have people from all over the world that have settled here in our state. And because of that, any workforce, in my opinion, that's here should be representative of those different areas. as much as possible because somebody who we have a strong Bosnian community. So somebody from the Bosnian community can say, okay, look, if we're going to market towards the Bosnian community, here's one thing we can do to add in uh, them so that way they feel included in the conversation. If we're going to market to the Hispanic community, here's some things we can do for the Hispanic population that adds to what we're doing. And again, we talked about revenue earlier. The more that you're marketing to the different audiences, the more revenue you're going to make because the more people are going to want to patron your business. And the people that are inside your business, the people that are working in the company are going to want to be more proactive about how can we continue to reach these people and how can we push ourselves to think outside of our boxes and our comfort zones in order to continue to grow and evolve. And then it's a positive reputation. Our reputations are built on the work we do. If a company is known as, hey, that company puts diversity, that company puts inclusion first, people are going to want to work for you and people are going to want to patron you. People who have good experiences working in there will say, hey, I love working here because I get to see all different types of people. I get to learn all different types of information that I wouldn't know. I am a better person. I'm a more well-rounded person because I've been able to take in information from somebody that comes from somewhere else. So I've got a colleague, she was raised in California. I'm a Kentucky boy. I learn things from her all the time about what California is like, how people act there versus how people act here in Kentucky. She's learned from me because we're not the same, but we're the same, and we've been willing to be open and honest with each other about here's the things that we like here, like we love sweet tea, we love cabbage and all these different things like that, whereas in California they don't live that type of lifestyle. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but it's just something a little bit different for everybody to kind of get used to and kind of do a little more with. So one some of the things we need to think about, especially if you're the leader in the group, because sometimes it's easier said than done. Some of the warnings or the things we need to take into account are that colleagues from some cultures may not feel as empowered to let their voice be heard. Sometimes if you're the only person in the room that you feel like is like you don't always want to talk. Sometimes because you feel like you might be ostracized. Sometimes because you feel like you're going to be the poster child for whatever it is. You're going to be known as this person. Every time we need something, we need to go to this person because they're the diversity, they're the minority, they're the person that doesn't look, act, or think like the rest of us. So, how do you foster that inclusive conversation? How do you say, you are not just going to be tokenized. Your voice matters too. Say what you need to say what you want to say because you're part of this team. Integration across multicultural teams, it can be difficult because when you look in the outside world, sometimes it's not what's going on in our office spaces, in our businesses, but it's what we see outside of it. So if you watch TV for a 24-hour news cycle, you're going to see something that's sexist, racist, um, all those things. That's what a lot of times tends to seep into our workplaces. It takes us from being a close knit work group, doing what we know we need to do, and being diverse and being happy with diversity or whatever that looks like, to now having to question what can we do? What's diversity? Is this right? Should I hire more people just to say I've hired more people? Should I try to push somebody so I can tell somebody, look, we've got this person, making it feel like diversity is being thrust upon us? The outside stereotypes of who people are or what we think they are just that. They're stereotypes. If a person can do the job, they can do the job well. If they get along with the people in the office, if they get along with the people that are going to be clients, that's who you should hire. Those are the people that you should foster. It doesn't mean that they have to be a certain ilk. They could be whoever they are, as long as they can do the work, as long as they fit in with the culture. Professional communication can be misinterpreted. A lot of times, and speaking of somebody uh, who deals with communication every day, and we've talked about this in previous 10-minute trainers, intent versus perception are not always the same. What I mean to say doesn't always come out the way I want it to, or it isn't perceived by somebody else the way I think it will be. So, being a little more intentional and careful about how we frame things, knowing that we are in mixed company, knowing we are in rooms where people may not all have the same ideology, or they may not all look the same, or they have different experiences. So, being sensitive to that, having that conversation of, look, I know what I don't know. I know that in my head, I think that saying this is fine, but this could be offensive or this could be misconstrued by anybody because of the differences of us. Having those conversations and making sure the office understands, hey, look, we're going to say things that are going to somehow offend somebody just because we don't know what we don't know. So sometimes it's navigating the technical issues. If somebody's coming from another country and they're maybe trying to get a visa, somebody who is maybe dealing with other employment or even personal issues based on who they are. How do we as an office handle that? Do we let that go? Is that something that they handle on their own, which in some cases might be fine? Is it something where we as an office we work together to make that person feel better if they're going through some stuff? If is there any way we can help? If you need to get somebody who wants to work here but they're not able to because they're having visa issues or they're having issues staying here because of whatever, where does the office come in? Those are things that you have to decide. Where do we fit in on this? What is our role as part of the team? Professional etiquette's different. Uh, you see the French; they kiss each other on the cheeks. Some people believe in handshakes. Some people believe in fist bumps. Some people, based on their culture, women they bow because that's their culture. Understanding the different professional etiquettes and not assuming that somebody's being disrespectful or they can't follow rules if they don't do things the way that we do. Understanding that because some people, maybe for them, for their religious beliefs, they have to, at certain times of the day, go off and pray, or they have to miss certain days because of their religious holidays. Understanding that the professional etiquette isn't the same between everybody, and that's okay. And sometimes this can create conflicting work work ideologies and work styles. I've always been the believer of do your best to try to make the work styles mesh, but understand that not everybody and not every group is going to mesh. In the end, if people can get the job done and they can feel good about the work that they've put out, you can feel good about the work they've put out, and there's a base level of respect, then you continue to go. If it becomes an issue where people are now having trouble communicating with each other, they're having an issue being able to say and do what they need to do, and the work gets stymied, then you need to have conversations about how can we fix this. But if the work's getting done and the people are feeling good about the work they're doing, then to me, that's one of those signs that yeah, the work styles may clash a little bit, but they're being effective. And sometimes they need to clash. Sometimes they need to clash in order for people to iron sharpen iron. If I know that the way I work isn't the same as my colleagues, but we get the same job done and we can respect each other and the way we get our work done, then that diversity helps. Four ways, like if we're going to make new hires feel included. Sometimes people who have been in an office space for a while, we kind of grow into each other and we understand each other. But for people who are being hired fresh to the company, some different things that you could do to look at how to best onboard them is, first of all, explain the importance of diversity and inclusion when you're onboarding. That's probably already in your booklets, your information about how much you treasure, how much you use diversity and inclusion. And if it's not, I would stress including something. It doesn't have to be a big long paragraph, maybe a line or two about how you guys foster diversity or even just how you see diversity. Because for a lot of people, especially if they are considered to be a minority, they are considered to be somebody other than the status quo. They want to know, as much as you're trying to hire them, they're trying to hire you and size you up. What am I going to get if I come? Am I going to be treated any differently? Am I going to be stopped or created barriers for me to succeed in this office because I don't look like everybody else here, or I don't believe the same, or I don't think the same? So by putting that out there, letting them know from the beginning, here's where we see you fitting in, and we see you fitting in just like everybody else with the same opportunities, the same benefits, everything. That tends to change how people work. Coach the existing teams on how to be inclusive to these new hires, because even though we've all kind of grown together and we kind of know how people act and people work, we've got our thing together. You're now adding in somebody new who either is unsure about diversity and how it works there, or they have their own ideas about diversity and how it works there. So bringing them in and kind of showing them, here's how we work, here's how the people in this room get along. We're not asking you to conform. We're just asking you to kind of grow along with us. We'll find a space for you. We'll find a place for you. But here's the culture, the big word, the culture. Here's the culture of our office. Sometimes it's just creating a safe space for people to know that no matter what happens, no matter what they say, no matter how they may feel on certain days. There was times during the past few years where being a black man did not feel good being in because of certain things going on. Having colleagues, coworkers that allowed me a safe space to just kind of vent, to kind of be, helped me out a lot. And everybody needs it, no matter your race, gender, religious belief. We all need a safe space. We all need a moment. We need a place where we can go to and either just be by ourselves or have the camaraderie and the fellowship of our colleagues. So making sure that that's there. And even for people that are our clients, sometimes they just need a safe space. Maybe they come to our office, maybe they come to our store because we are a safe space from some things that are going on in their lives or things that are going on in the outside world. So making sure we create those places for everybody. And by the same token, creating places for feedback. So that way, when people are feeling something, they can give feedback. Hey, we love the fact that you are an open, inclusive place. We love the fact that we can come to your office, or I can come to work and I never feel like I'm being tokenized or I'm being underutilized because of who I am. I feel like I am part of the team, or I feel like coming to your store, I'm always treated with the utmost respect. Being able to find those places for feedback from people, that's huge because that's where you grow. That's where you build trust with your colleagues. That's where you build trust with your employees. That's where you build trust with your audience and with your clientele. So, ways to intentionally increase a diverse culture. First, acknowledge intersectionality. So, a lot of times we think about diversity as one thing. Like you look at me, I'm a black man. Okay, that's not all. Intersectionality looks at all the different things. So I'm a black man in my 40s. I'm straight or heterosexual. That's who I am. That's my intersectionality. But what if you hire an Asian person who is lesbian, who has, adopted children, who is 72 years old? That intersectionality, understanding that we're all not one thing, we're all not a stereotype. Rather, what we are, we're not a number, we're nuanced. Everyone has a nuance. So understanding that you can't, if you hire two Latinos, they're not just Latinos. They are two different people who happen to be Hispanic. What is the nuance between those two people? You can't treat them the same, much like you can't treat two white people or two men or two women the same. There are nuances between us. So acknowledging and understanding intersectionality is key. Building diversity, kind of like we talked about, into your leadership training. If you're going to be in a leadership role, or you're going to aspire to put somebody in a leadership role, helping them to understand what diversity looks like for our company. How can we employ it? How can we do it in such a way that it's not demeaning to anybody? To make sure that we are putting the best people in our place and doing it in the right way, a way that is welcoming, a way that is helpful and not harmful to anybody. All of your teams should have some sort of representation of diversity. Now, that doesn't just mean your frontline workers, where all of your top level folks look, act, and think the same way. That's not really diversity. When every rung of the ladder has some level of diversity, that's where you start to see top down gains in diverse thinking, in diverse work, diverse ideology, and how you gain. We talked about the money quotient. It grows from the top down. If you've got a top that's very much homogeneous versus a bottom that is diverse, the bottom really can't do a lot because the top isn't changed. But if it's from the top down that everything is diverse, now you start to see how everything works together and works in lockstep. Recognize your own bias. Everybody has a bias about something, about someone, based off the stereotypes we've seen, based off of past experiences or thoughts that we've had. So moving past those and judging the person or the people that are hired simply on how they treat you, or the people that are your clients based on simply how they treat you, not on what you think they are because you've dealt with this type of person or you've heard this about this group of people. You'd be surprised how many times those stereotypes are incorrect. Almost all the time, they're correct. Hold the leaders accountable. If somebody's going to lead you, they need to lead by example. If they're not being inclusive and growing the diversity, the inclusive language in the group, what incentive is there for anybody else to? So if your leaders are going to act very non-diverse, why is anybody else in the office going to take that step? But if a leader leads by showing their diversity, showing their humanity, and being willing to acknowledge their biases and the things that they don't know as well, or the things they need to work on, that's when you start to see buy-in from everybody else. That's when you start to see customers that haven't been in your shop or your store, who haven't taken advantage of your services before, start to come in because they see people making efforts. The leaders, the tops, the owners, those are the ones that are starting to branch out and starting to be more diverse in their thought process and in the way they act and the way they treat people. And then finally, use inclusive language. Inclusive language allowing people to feel like they are part of the process, that they're not just there to be trotted out like a dog and pony show. Not saying that, oh, well, we're going to do this, you think this way, or you do that. There are no we and you, there's an us. There's an us. How can we all work together? How can we be a part of this team and make this work? Those are the things that we need to look at and work through if we're going to have a diverse office. And the thing about it, if you're intentional about it, it's not hard. Some people will make it sound like it's really hard to do. If you're intentional about creating that culture, that diverse and inclusive workspace, that culturally inclusive product or brand or service, it's not hard. It's just thinking about basic human decency. How do people want to be treated? How am I looking at people? Am I looking at people from the right lens? Am I leading others and directing them to think about other people in the right lens? That's the simple sauce right there. That's how you do it. And I mean, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more people become accustomed to that. That's not a shock when you see, oh, they've got a diverse workforce over there. They've got a well oiled machine. They've got a melting pot over there. It becomes the norm. It becomes the standard. It becomes something you can hang your hat on as part of who you are, which to me I think is probably one of the greatest things. So hopefully that's been helpful. Brian, we talk about this a lot. But sometimes I think it's easier to talk about it than to actually do it.
1,000%, Ryan. Really, just a wonderful, a wonderful dive in here. And I know we're at about our 30 minute mark. We're just quite over. And I'm jumping in for Darren, who's joining us now on our mobile app as he had to hit the road. But Ryan, I had one question that actually somebody sent me a text to, and so I figured I wanted to chime in, right? That a lot of us right now are going through some transition period, at least on the media broadcast side. And this individual said, "Hey, I want to bring in more diverse perspectives on our team." Sorry, I just got another message. Hang on. I want to bring more diverse perspectives into the team. What are some of the practical strategies for attracting talent we might not usually reach? I think that's a really common thing.
Yeah.
I have something to chime in, but please, I'd love your take on that.
And especially off the broadcast side and I being in there, it's going places that you normally wouldn't go or you haven't been before. Because
Yeah.
I know we've struggled with that. When I was in the business, like, well, we can't find diversity. Where are you looking? Where are the places that you're looking? If you're putting ads in the same places, in the same magazines, whatever, you're going to get a small level. But when you step outside and you work in other spaces that you haven't been before, you may come up with nothing, or you may come up with a treasure trove of people who normally wouldn't get looked at. So I always say, look somewhere you haven't looked before, and then you'll usually find somebody.
And I agree. I mean, we're going through a position right now on 10 Minute Trainer Network that we're looking for somebody to jump in on our team, and it's so as we're going through this hiring process, as we're putting together an overview on the position, I think it's really important to say, listen, you may not have all the qualities that we're looking for, right? Nobody has everything, right? But if
Right.
you feel like this has a draw or a pull, we want you a part of a team. And I think to me that speaks that none of us are perfect. None of us are going to fit exactly where we want to go, and that's a good thing. I mean, prior to this call, I was talking to Amanda Fontaine, who oversees the Mississippi Association of Broadcasters, and she does a series on colors, right? And talking about our personality traits and how we're all wired different, and we all have a color that we identify with, right? Similar to a DISC assessment, but just a different
Yep.
take on it. And it's so important to have a mixture of folks on our teams because that's where the power comes, right? I mean, you said two and a half
Right.
times more cash flow with a diversified team, and I believe it, right? Because we've got to stop. If we've got a sales meeting, stop just talking to the sellers, right? We're going
Hmm.
to churn the same ideas over and over. Start pulling in folks from other industries, or not every industries, but other departments to have that discussion. Get the outside perspective because we are too close to it, right? And so I think
Right.
little things like that are just very practical. So Ryan, I just wonderful takeaway. Although I will tell you, you lost me on cabbage. I was like, no, no, no. I don't think I can get along with anybody who likes cabbage, but no, just a really good review for how do we best diversify our teams? How do we set ourselves up for success? And I think it's the stop doing things the same way and get the outside perspective. And outside perspective is very wide range, right? It's individuals, it's industries, it's departments, it's culture. It is everything. So anyway, I really appreciate you going through everything with us. So
It's a
um,
pleasure.
yeah. So, well, thanks everybody for joining us for another episode or live event here on 10 Minute Trainer Network. I know we kept you 40 minutes, but this has just been a wealth of knowledge. Ryan, we're gonna have you again, obviously throughout the rest of this year, but into 2026. What are you working on? What excites you? What are you really excited to start talking about in 2026? And whether that be 10 Minute Trainer Network or your
Yeah.
classes, give us a little insight. What are you going through right now, and how might we tap into that in the new year?
So I'll tell you what, so I'm excited about obviously doing some more communication stuff and talking more on 10-minute trainer. It's always fun to do that. I'm excited. I've got a podcast that I've been working on for the past almost 2 years now.
All
It's
right.
it's about It's called Church with No Walls. It's about religion, and initially it was about religion and how churches dealt with the changeover from hybrid, with the pandemic. So there's about 20 episodes that kind of talk about that. Now we're looking and diving into outreach ministries, all the different types of outreach ministries. So I've talked to people somebody who does jujitsu, and he uses that as a way to pull people in religion and bring them, get them closer to God. I've talked to authors. I'm looking for, if anybody happens to know anybody, I'm looking for somebody who does professional wrestling, a Christian wrestling association, because it's an outreach ministry. It just fascinates me, the people I've talked to, uh, how ministry can be done outside the four walls of the church. So that's something that really gasses me up. And then just working with my students, being a college professor, I love working with these students because, and I know we have a lot of broadcasters on here, being able to see these young people work and the way their thoughts and the way they're elevating and pushing the field of broadcasting excites me. So those are the things I'm looking forward to continuing in 2026, and obviously more work here, because I think this is great and I've enjoyed being a part of this.
Well, we appreciate you being a part of it as well, and I agree. That's another thought process is bringing in the next wave of future folks to our industry and challenging our thinking, challenging our teams. No, props for you for leading that discussion. And unfortunately, I'm not a wrestler, so and I think you could probably tell that. But no, well, we appreciate you tuning in today and giving us a message here. And we will definitely be hearing from you more soon. So thanks. A big shout out to everybody for joining us on 10 Minute Trainer Network. We are really excited. We've got one more live event before the end of the year. So stay tuned on marketing, and that Jen on our team will be pushing out through the 10 Minute Trainer Network. But Ryan, thanks again so much. And hey, we look forward to talking with you all soon.